Just want to let everybody know we'll be live streaming. Patience as we look at this legislation, and I want to be clear, if we didn't think it was important legislation, it would not be in a subcommittee being vetted. I would, as we get started, we're going to get started the way we always do. I'm going to ask my good friend and fellow law enforcement officer, Senator Tim Bearden, to open us with a prayer. Mike, you on Tim? 8?
Lord, thank you for this day and allow us to do the work of the people here and make proper decisions. Bless us on our journeys back and forth and back to our homes tonight. And I ask that you never let us forget the ultimate sacrifice Jesus Christ made for us on the cross to forgive us of our sins and to save the world and not to condemn it. In Christ's name we pray. Amen.
When Chairman Albers handed this piece of legislation over to my the subcommittee to look at, my approach on this is going to be the same as my approach on any other piece of public safety legislation. As I call the witnesses up and ask each one of you to speak about whatever your role is when it comes to speed cameras in school zones, just want everybody to know this is a motion doesn't factor into this. We're looking at Georgia law, we're looking at Title 40, and in some cases we're looking at Title 16. And we just want good, solid information so we can go back to the full committee and make whatever recommendations I think that need to be made. But I want to point out, anytime a House member or a senator brings forth legislation because of something that happened to them, I'm always suspect. When somebody comes in and says, well, my wife got one of these, or I got one of these, or my granddaughter got one of these, and all this other kind of stuff, you need a stronger reason to bring forth a piece of legislation other than something that impacted you personally. Because full disclosure, I believe a member of my family has received 2 of these. And we did something really unorthodox. We paid them. Because speeding, whether it's through a school zone, whether it's through a town, whether it's through the county, whether it's through an urban area, is dangerous. National Transportation Safety Board will tell you it's dangerous, and a lot of people die every year because of speeding. People in vehicles and people outside of vehicles. So speeding is the focus. This technology, which I think is a force multiplier, when used properly, I think is valuable. When used improperly, the agency using it shouldn't be allowed to use it if they do not want to comply with the rules. But the rights of citizens are paramount to everything. So due process is an extremely important part of this. And again, I want to thank Chairman Burns for bringing this legislation forward. We've been debating this thing, I think, now for about 3 years. And we're coming to the time where it's time to finish the debate and make some decisions. And I would rather the smart decisions be made at the local level. I see my friend from GMA here, DJ, who runs the public safety side for Georgia Municipal Association. He always gets, he loses more and more hair every day when he thinks we're trying to take local control away from him. And so hopefully we can get everybody on the right track. And with that, is Mayor Patty Garrett here? Mayor, if you would please step up and have a seat there at the mic. And Mayor, we are live streaming, so if you would introduce yourself and tell us exactly where you're from, and then we would like for you and the chief to talk about the history of y'all's program and how it's going.
All right, thank you very much. Good morning. I am Patty Garrett. I'm mayor of the city of Decatur, and thank you for allowing me and Chief Richards to come and provide some information to this subcommittee about the city of Decatur's ongoing commitment to traffic safety. Our community safety is really our top priority in using these cameras. We want to make sure our roads are safe for people who drive through our city, who live, work, and play in our city, and especially for the children. We have about 50% on average of our kids walking or biking to school every day in Decatur. I'm always amazed, even when it's raining or when it's cold, those kids are just used to getting out and walking to school or biking to school. We really have fostered public awareness about our program and about all of the measures that we are taking to keep people safe in our community. The city has been alarmed at the number of accidents that we have had. As a small city of about 4.7 square miles, we are almost 25,000 people, so we are in a dense, urban area, suburban, right next to the city of Atlanta. The death of a teenager walking on a sidewalk in November 23. There was a hit and run accident involving a Beacon Hill Middle School student, and a crossing guard was hit in January of 2024, in addition to other pedestrian accidents. So this really calls for urgent action on our part, and our residents are very much in support of us doing things and having strategies to slow cars down and make it possible for those who are most vulnerable, especially our children, in getting to and from school. We have a robust Safe Routes to School program. We have one of the highest participating rates in the state of Georgia, and our program started as a pilot program in 2005, and the city provides 48 crossing guards in the city of Decatur, and 48 crossing guards in that size city. So we've implemented a number of traffic calming types of measures, and our school zone cameras, as the chief will tell you, have only been implemented for several months, and we've seen dramatic decreases in speeding during those hours once we had the pilot program, issued warning tickets, and now that we are implementing those school zone cameras.
Mayor, if I can interrupt you real quick, how did y'all enforce speeding prior to the cameras being installed?
I'll let the chief answer that.
Both mics are hot.
Okay, sure.
Good morning. I'm Scott Richards. I'm the chief of police for the city of Decatur. Prior to the photo enforcement, an officer would sit stationary in a patrol car and run laser in the school zones.
How many school zones do y'all have in Decatur?
We have a total of 22 school zones.
Okay, thank you.
And we certainly don't have 22 officers that can be at those school zones. We currently have installed these school zone cameras. We looked at the data to see where they were most needed, worked with GDOT, and we are using them in 5 of those school zones. And we find that these are really critical to us being able to enforce school zone laws as people are driving to and from through our city, and 4 of the 5 are on state routes, and so we know sometimes those are viewed as having higher speed limits, but when they're in a school zone, they're in a school zone. So we really support having the access to these traffic assistant, speed assistant devices. We support the needed guardrails that we feel like we have a model system. I'll let the chief tell you a little bit more about it, but Decatur is ranked as the #1 most bikeable city in Georgia. We're a gold level walk friendly city.
Excuse me, Mayor. How do you
Okay.
get that distinction?
So you make application and show, you have to present evidence that you have bike routes and you have people using them, and the same thing with a gold level walk-friendly city. So we have sidewalks. We invest every year in our sidewalk infrastructure, repairing sidewalks and putting in new sidewalks, and have prioritized our safe routes to school. We have embedded in our sidewalks little medallions that say safe route walking to school or safe route to school. So I really want to let the chief tell you about how successful this program has been, and we would like to see that we would like to have the ability to continue to use this important tool, and we feel like we have a model program and that has been successful and that has time set and has have guardrails in place. We support flashing lights. We support times. We find that that's the way we're implementing the system, and feel like that it has been very successful for us. And we would hate to have that tool taken away, because there's no way we can have officers on site enforcing our speed limits throughout the city during the school zone hours. So I'm going to let Chief Richards tell you a little bit about the success of the program, if that's okay.
Yes, ma'am. Real quick, is anybody on the committee have any questions of the mayor? Okay, real quick, Mayor. This safe route to schools I know I heard you say it was a pilot project.
It was a pilot project in 2005 with
Right.
GDOT, and now
Okay,
it's
yes, ma'am.
with a lot
so
of
this
other.
this is a GDOT program.
Yeah, well, yes, it started out a GDOT program, and now it is through we partner with the City Schools of Decatur, and so I don't know, I think it is a freestanding program that schools throughout the state now participate in.
So are these funded through the Georgia Department of Education, or are these through grants, or is it just it
is not.
There's no funding at all?
There's not funding, I don't believe. Is that correct, Chief?
I don't believe there is.
Our city manager is back here. There's no city funding, so it is a cooperative effort
Okay,
between
but anytime somebody says there's no city funding, is there state funding?
So I don't know if the program has any funding or not.
It's a volunteer group of parents and
Right. It's so.
So this isn't like I wouldn't drive through Decatur and see a sign that says, safe route to schools or anything like that. This is just a grassroots program ran by citizens of Decatur and supported by the city.
Supported by the city and the city schools of Decatur.
Right.
Right.
But
Right.
the city schools don't provide any funding either.
There's not funding. It is, we use volunteers to put those medallions in to identify the locations, and we have walking groups, and we do training through our Parks and Rec department and of volunteers, and but it is now it is kind of housed with the schools and the city, but there's no funding per se put into it. It is more a volunteer effort and the staff time to train people and to be a part of the Safe Routes to School.
Yeah. Thank you. And Chief, right before you give your testimony, I want to remind anybody sitting on the pews in the back, if you have anything to add, you're going to have to come up to the microphone and add it, because everything's being recorded.
Okay.
But Chief, if you'll go ahead and.
Okay. Yes,
Thank
sir.
you.
I would like to comment on the safe route. So we have 10 schools within the city of Decatur. Each of those schools has a representative that sits on the state route committee, and through the police department, through the city recreation department, and City Schools of Decatur. Then each year they create routes that would be the safest routes for the kids to go to and from school every day. And those locations are posted on city websites and also the school website as well, so the students know which is the safest route to take to and from school.
And it's your understanding, along with the mayor, that there is no funding for these programs? This is just a grassroots program that the city's pushing forward?
Other than city funding and city personnel, and then I would say any improvements that need to be made around the schools for the funding to be done there.
But we're not
so,
paying.
So a little bit of city funding is all I'm hearing, right?
I believe it is it's city staff time.
Right. And the
Right.
reason I ask this is if this is a successful program, and it's supported, and one aspect of it is what we're here to talk about today.
Right.
Then if this is something that works, it may be something we want to duplicate around the state.
Right. There is
in other areas.
there is a state level safe routes to school program, and I believe it may be housed under GDOT, but I'm not sure. But because we have been recognized by the state organization for our program.
Okay,
So it is implemented in other places.
Very good. Now, Chief, if we could talk about the nuts and bolts of the speed
Yes,
camera
sir.
program.
Yes, sir. Thank you all for allowing me an opportunity to be here this morning. Certainly in the city of Decatur, safety is our number one priority. We're a very unique city in that we're very densely populated, and walkability is one of our top priorities for the city of Decatur. As far as the police department, we're tasked with making sure that pedestrians, bicyclists, and vehicles can all share the roadway safely. In 2023, we entered into a photo enforcement program with Blue Line Solutions. The goal was to identify 5 school zones within the city of Decatur where we could reduce the number of speeding vehicles. That was done so that we could reduce the likelihood of serious injuries and or crashes for the most vulnerable, which would be the kids and the parents walking, biking, and riding to schools. As the mayor mentioned, we have 5 school zones that we do have photo enforcement in place. 4 of those are state routes. 4 of them are, 3 of them are elementary schools. Their school zone times are 7:20 in the morning to 8:20, 2:50 to 3:50 in the afternoon. And then we have 1 middle school, which school zone times are 7:45 to 8:45 and 3:45 to 4:45. Again, as I mentioned, we have 10 schools in the city of Decatur. We have 22 school zones within the city of Decatur.
All right, if you'll hang on real quick, Chief, the bill sponsor is here, and we're going to allow him to work in with the committee on these questions. What mic are you on, Chairman?
Chairman Fine, Chairman.
Yes, sir.
Chief, thank you for the input. Go back over those times. You see, you've got a morning time and an afternoon time. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And it depends upon when the school convenes and when it dismisses. Is that true?
Yes, sir.
Do you operate those speed enforcement cameras at other times during the day?
No, sir.
Do you operate any warning signals at other times during the day?
No, sir.
Thank you.
Chief,
let me-
Chief, go ahead.
If
Chief.
I could, Mike, so we did have a, yesterday, matter of fact, we had a speed display sign that was installed in one of our school zones on Church Street for Claremont Elementary, so that will function throughout the day. The other 4 school zones are state routes, and GDOT does not allow those in our district as far as the speed display signs at this time.
Yeah.
So you have 1 school that's on a non-state route, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And in that school, what are the operational times for your speed zone camera?
7:20 to 8:20 and 2:50 to 3:50.
So it's the same time of enforcement, but the warning signals, would they operate at other times?
The speed display sign will operate during those times, yes, sir.
Chief, so what I just heard you say is these speed cameras operate for 1 hour?
Yes, sir.
In the morning and
In
the
the morning.
afternoon.
Right.
afternoon.
So 2 hours total for the entire day.
Yes.
What time? 7:20, I think, is when it
Yes, sir.
starts. Okay. What time's the school open?
8:20. There's class begins at 8:20.
Okay.
So it's an hour before school starts.
So the bell rings at 8:20
Yes, sir. For the elementary schools.
for the elementary school, and so the cameras go off at 8:20.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So everybody gets to school on time?
For the most part, I would assume. I mean, we have 48 school crossing guards. So the school crossing guard times differ than the photo enforcement.
Okay, so to complement the system, you think one of the reasons you're able to do that is because you have the human element out there for the school crossing to slow vehicles down, stop vehicles, and move traffic where it needs to go?
Not to slow traffic, they safely cross the kids.
But they have
across the street.
they have the sign that says stop and the
Yes,
sign, this, so they walk out into the crosswalk and they hold the sign up, traffic stops and the children are able to cross the street, correct?
Yes.
Okay, and you say the flashing speed sign you have on a city street,
Yes, sir.
but DOT will not allow this on the state road that you have the cameras on, correct?
That's our understanding, yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead, Chief.
Okay. So whenever we implemented the program with Blue Line, there's three essential elements of the program: public information, education, and also enforcement. On September 30th of 2024, we began the public information session. On October 14th, we began a 30-day warning period. And on November 13th, 2024, we began the live enforcement of the program. So we have not been up and running all that long. Prior to the program and the public information, the company did a 5-day speed study in all 5 of our school zones. The study did reveal a extremely high number of vehicles that were speeding during the afternoon and morning hours of the school zone. 22,443 vehicles were identified during that 5-day period as speeding through the school zones. That was September of 2024. During our public information and education phase, that number decreased to 7,491, which is a 66.6% reduction in speed.
Chief, what do you attribute that reduction to?
The public information program in reference to us going live with the photo enforcement.
Okay, and how did you put that information out?
We put it out through our social media platforms and also City Schools of Decatur, as well as a press release to the local media.
Thank you.
During our 30-day warning period, violations decreased another 2,284, which was a 23.2% reduction. And once formal enforcement began, violations decreased 1,797, which was a 2.2% reduction. Overall, since the program has been in effect, speeding has reduced 92% as a result of the program.
Chief, real quick, how long have you been in law enforcement?
Over 30 years.
Okay. Through practice, through watching things that work and watching things that don't work, what impact do you think the cameras had on this overall reduction in speeding through the school zones?
I think it's a huge impact on reducing overall speeding. As we said before, we don't have 22 officers to sit in 22 school zones. Even if an officer is sitting in a school zone running speed detection, once they get a violator speeding, then they go out of that school zone to stop the particular violator. Therefore, any other cars that are coming through that school zone are not seeing a police car present because they're outside of that school zone. Some folks have said, well, why can't you just park a police car in a school zone? That is ineffective over time. It may get somebody's attention for the first couple of days, but if they know that they're speeding and they don't get pulled over, then that's not effective.
Would you agree that sitting an unmanned police car in an area is kind of disingenuous attempt at public safety?
Absolutely.
I mean, it's not what we were trained for, and I do want to point out that that Senator Bearden was also the director of GIPSTIC and responsible for training law enforcement officers throughout the state of Georgia. And so with his background, I think in my few days on the job, we understand that you don't go out and play police when it comes to public safety. When it comes, and we're not talking about bank robberies, and we're not talking about homicides. We're talking about the day-to-day responsibility of keeping people safe. And so, and you brought up having an officer run radar. When they get them stopped, a good efficient officer can get in and out of a citation probably in 15, 20 minutes based on GCIC, NCIC, if everything's up and running right, and we get the information back and everybody's insurance is squared away and everything. But you would have that officer out of that school zone for a fairly strong period of time before they could issue a citation, turn around, go back, get in the school zone, reset up if you were running radar. Would that not be true?
That's correct, yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Okay. Chairman Bearden.
You're a slow ticket writer. Oh, I was on motors. It was quick. Oh, thank y'all for being here.
Yes, sir.
Now, how many schools did you say you had again in the city?
We have 10.
10 schools. Number one, appreciate the school crossing guards. I think that's great because that allows our SROs free up to where they should be, which is in the schools. How many SROs do you have? Is there one in every school, or do you have a roving SRO? Or
We have staffing for 2 SROs. Those positions are currently unfilled due to staffing. The school system does have additional staff in 2 of the schools as a result of that.
well, I'm going to kind of dive into the money part because you brought up a good phrase. We want to make sure there's guardrails in place. What is the yearly subscription price for the cameras? Is there
There's no subscription price. It's violator funded.
so the city pays for the camera system, correct?
No.
Or how? Well, walk me through how this system is set up.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm sorry?
I was just going to say, tell me how the system's. I want to know how the system's put in place because there's a cost for the cameras.
Right.
Yes. So obviously there's a permitting process through GDOT. Once that goes through the process, then our contract with Blue Line, we did not pay for any of the cameras to be installed. Once a citation is issued, the city gets 35% of the fine, and Blue Line Solutions gets 35% of the fine.
How long does that process go for as long as the cameras are in place?
I think we're 3 to 5 year contract. I'm not sure exactly on the length of the contract.
Okay, because I was talking to, as you know, ACCG was in town last night, or maybe you didn't, and we had several conversations with many commissioners throughout the state. Some mentioned a subscription price, kind of like you do with flock cameras. That's a yearly pay for that
Yes.
service. And Mayor, I guess on the 35% the city receives, where does that money go?
So we haven't spent any of it. It will go only for public safety expenses and generally one-time kind of expenses. So we made that decision that we weren't going to use it like to fund maybe additional crossing guards. We would use our general fund budget to do something like that, just because our hope is that we take in less money every year. I mean, that really is the plan, is that we know it's never going to get to zero because people are going to speed and they're, we'll get some revenue for that. And we recognize that it does take our police time to process these. It's my understanding from the chief that we have someone, a police officer, review every ticket before it is sent out, so that it comes from Blue Line to the police department, and they review it before it is sent out to the offender. So, but we are, according to the current law, I believe it has to be spent for public safety expenditures. So again, our program is new. We are holding off making decisions about how to use that money, sort of based on anything that might come out of this legislative session. But we could use it for safety equipment for our crossing guards, for additional flock cameras, for any sort of public safety expense that we think would benefit our community. But it would, and the recommendations would most likely come from Chief Richards.
And real quick, Mayor, I went to Harris County High School, but 35 and 35 is 70, correct?
Correct.
So where's the other
30%.
30% of the revenue?
65 is for the city of Decatur, 35% is Blue
I
Line.
think.
Okay, you said 35.
I'm sorry.
Right.
I'm sorry.
Okay, that,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yes.
So,
it's,
yeah.
well, I appreciate that, and my math teacher will appreciate that too.
Right. So
If they're still alive.
I'm glad to know everybody's paying attention
Yeah,
with those
yeah.
numbers, right? So
But to something Chairman Bearden was talking about, right now it says it goes to public safety, and how long have you been the mayor there in Decatur?
this is my 10th year.
10th year. God bless you. The designating it for public safety, Mayor, would you agree there is the opportunity for some cities, if they wanted to basically supplant current public safety funding with the funding that comes from these cameras? In other words, if you have these cameras and your public safety budget is currently $5 million and you were to make $1 million off this camera, you could take $1 million from the public safety budget, redirect it somewhere else, and plug that hole with the $1 million that you generate from the speed cameras, correct? And I'm saying that you have the opportunity. There's no ordinance that requires y'all to direct that money into a particular thing, is there?
There is not. I mean, basically, we are using the state law as guidance, and with guidance from our city attorney about we would make sure that, but it is not meant to. We're not going to supplement police salaries. We want to make sure.
The state law just says public safety, correct?
Right.
So that's a wide open
Yes.
vista there,
It
correct?
is. And we've had those conversations about, what that might look like. The only thing that we are really looking at now is making sure that it is not a recurring expense, because we feel like that's something that we don't want to depend on.
With revenues dropping, it wouldn't be responsible to make it a reoccurring expense, would it? Because if we'll use the $1 million again next year, based on the chief's numbers, $1 million goes down to 300,000.
Right, exactly.
And
So then we're
then
trying
you're
to find that
then
other
you're short in pulling that money
700,000.
back.
Correct.
So responsible use
Would
is
be-
obviously what we see in Decatur, I believe.
Right. Thank you.
I do want to say I'm very supportive of the system, because I know there's not enough law enforcement to go around to put in every school zone.
Right. Thank you.
But also know, throughout the Senate and the House, there are people that want to see these things go away. So to make sure we got the guardrails, and it always goes back to the money. I know I sound like a senator,
Not a Republican senator.
well, that's next to me. But that's the big issue. They think it's a slush fund. I said no one wants to get a ticket from a camera or from a police officer. But I want to make sure that, as you said, we put the guardrails in place to protect what we have, to make sure people are slowing down. So I may ask some questions about money to a lot of you, but it's for the reason we want to make sure this continues to move forward and we have this resource at our disposal to slow people down in the school zones.
I appreciate the opportunity to come before you and talk about our program, and to say that we have tried to put those, we have put those kind of guardrails in place so that we meet the objectives of getting people to slow down during our school zone hours and to protect kids. And I think the chief may have an additional.
Chief, go ahead, real quick. Yeah, I've got a question. I want to follow up with something you said earlier.
Yeah, I would just like to comment on Senator Bearden's question. Although the mayor is correct, we have not spent any of the funds in there, but we have earmarked 2 items that we will spend the money on once it gets approved through GDOT, and that's in 2 of our current photo enforcement school zones, one of them being Church Street. As I said, it does have the photo display that was installed, but it does not currently have the yellow flashing lights. We're going to get the yellow flashing lights installed there, as well as on South Candler State Route 155, which is another zone that we have that does not have flashing lights. And then we're going to look at the current lights that we have, flashing lights in the school zones, and see if any of them need to be upgraded. And then also look at the other zones. Like I said, we have 22 that don't have any flashing lights, and whether they have photo enforcement or not, to be able to get flashing lights in those zones as well, so the drivers know.
And who pays for those flashing lights, Chief?
We will.
Taxpayers, right?
The city of Decatur, yes.
Right, the taxpayers in
Yes.
Decatur will pay for those
Yes.
flashing lights. And you've got one installed or being installed?
We have one on South Candler that is to my understanding, in the permit process with GDOT, and we may be in the permit process with Church Street as well. We're working with our Public Works Department.
What's the cost?
I think, don't quote me on it, somewhere around 50 to 60,000 per.
So 50 to 60,000 per. It would be if y'all continue with the process, every school zone would have them, right?
Yes, that is our intention.
Along with the school zone speed signs and everything else, correct?
The photo enforcement would have, if GDOT approves it as part of this legislation, then the 5 or the 4 that we currently have that don't have them, those would be installed. That could be something we could look at as far as funding through the city for the other ones to have the speed display sign with the flashing lights.
Okay, so the mayor said something a while ago. I want to jump forward because we're going to start moving here fairly quickly. But you have an officer that reviews all the citations sent to you by Blue Line.
Yes, sir.
What training or additional training or education does this officer have related to vetting these citations issued from Blue Line, if any?
They're a post-certified police officer. They go through with Blue Line as far as what to look for on the citation. It's internet-based, so you confirm that the vehicle that's listed there is the make, model of that vehicle. You confirm that the tag number is that tag number that comes back on that particular picture of the vehicle and the tag. You confirm the time, that the school zone time is within the designated time, and then confirm the date as well to make sure that the date is a day during the week that school was in session.
And Chief, so the citations that he receives or she receives from Blue Line, they receive them through internet?
Yes.
Okay.
Web-based.
Web-based. So do they go to Blue Line, or does Blue Line notify you that citations are there?
Blue Line reviews them whenever they come in through Blue Line representative receives them, and then we receive them. We log into the system, and it will show how many citations are in the queue.
Does the officer, do they have the ability to dismiss the citation in the web-based system?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So there is no paper moving back and forth. Are they required to give an explanation for the dismissal?
There are criteria for the dismissal. So it could be, the tag number does not match the tag number in the photo. You may not be able to read the vehicle, make out the vehicle due to lighting conditions. So there's probably a list of 8 criteria where the officer can reject the citation.
Who created that criteria?
Blue Line Solutions.
Okay, in the process of negotiation, but you're the police chief, right?
Yes.
You can alter, change the criteria, or you can make decisions?
I can make recommendations, and we have had conversations since our program has been in place with Blue Line on things that we've seen that may need to be corrected, or would be easier for the officer that is processing the citation to be able to be more efficient processing.
Okay, the officer processes the citation, it moves forward. How does the citation get into the hands of the citizen?
Then the citation is sent back to Blue Line Solutions, and then they have a number of days to process it, and then they send it to the violator in the mail.
Okay, once the violator receives a citation, what's the due process?
They can either go online and pay the citation, or if they contest a court date, then there's another link that they can go to contest the court date, and then that information would be sent over to our municipal court in the city of Decatur, at which time they would be issued a court date.
Okay, and which court would they go to in Decatur?
The city of Decatur Municipal Court.
Okay, and in there they challenge the citation based on just whether it was them driving the vehicle, or I read an article by a rep who said that when he got one of these, he had to fill out an affidavit and have it notarized and send it in to disclaim that it was not his wife driving her vehicle, but it was him driving her vehicle. Is there any part of your process that would require a citizen to do anything like that?
There, if you're contesting it that you were not the driver of that particular vehicle, there is a affidavit that needs to be signed and then presented in court, and then the judge would determine, guilt or innocence based on the testimony given by the driver.
Rhetorical question. You write me a citation on the side of the road and you hand me that citation, there's a court date on it, right?
Yes, sir.
And then I go to the same city court to either plead out or challenge that citation, right?
Yes, sir. Or you could pay it off.
Or I could pay it, right, online, probably
Yes, sir.
most likely. So the citizen here, when they get the citation, it's pay first is the first opportunity given to them, and then say again how they receive their court date.
There's a place to contest the citation on the website, and then they would be
Very simply, is it just I contest? They don't have to give a reason, right?
I'm not
Okay.
familiar on the exact verbiage
Right.
Of it, but there is a place on the website to contest it.
Okay, and then once they contest it, how are they given a court date?
It's my understanding that Blue Line Solutions then contacts our municipal court, and that would start the court process to put them on the court docket.
And who would testify on the city's behalf at this court hearing?
There'd be a post-certified officer.
Would it be the
testifying.
same post-certified officer that reviewed the citations?
It has, I believe, up to this point, it has been, but I can't say that it's going to be that every time.
Are the post-certified officers, are they familiar with the technology used by your vendor to test speed or to
There's
give the speed?
there's a court packet that is sent through Blue Line, depending on which school zone location it is. Then there is a court packet that is sent with it to court that has all the calibration and the checks and everything like that.
Okay, so the court packet shows basically, and you said an important word there, the calibration of the equipment to make sure that the equipment is accurate.
Yes.
And much like we would on an NTOX seminar, we used to have NTOX seminar 3,000,
Yes,
4,000, whatever, where the operator would have to know a limited amount of the technology in order to test deep lung air, so they could at least give a general testimony in court as to how they tested the person's blood, breath, urine, or other bodily substance. So in this case, the court packet contains that type of information related to this equipment so that it can be articulated to the judge if there's a question of whether the equipment's accurate or not. Would that be a fair statement?
That's my understanding, yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Yeah. Chairman Burns.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just to follow up, right now, all of the interaction with a violator is through a citation that would be mailed to them, but if they choose to contest it, it would be through some web-oriented application. Is that true?
Yes, sir.
Now, I recognize Decatur has pretty good internet, and I recognize that Decatur has a very maybe more knowledgeable citizenry. I represent areas that there is no internet, and they do not interact effectively in a web-based application. What are the alternatives to that process?
I don't know if there is a telephone number per se that is available on the back of the citation. Blue Line may be able to speak to that.
And I do want to clear up, we've got to the due process part, and I think that's what I wanted to get to. The next witness is going to be anyone here from Blue Line.
Okay.
That we'll talk to them a little more in depth about the technology and the process according to some of Chairman Burns' concerns in rural Georgia and other places like that. So, Chief, I appreciate that. If y'all hang around, if
Yes,
something else jumps in, Mayor, thank you again. And who do we have here from Blue Line Solutions?
If I could just make one final comment.
Ma'am, as a politician, I'd have been shocked if you didn't.
Thank you. All right. So when we have a snow day, we contact Blue Line. Make sure that, we really pay attention to when we're running these cameras. And so, or we were out on break.
Mayor, thank you for saying that. I want to ask you: who's the primary contact with Blue Line? Is the contract with Blue Line with the city of Decatur?
It is.
Yes.
Okay. Have you found, and I hate keep using a name of a company, a name of a vendor, but with your vendor, have you found them to be very responsive?
Yes.
through
And I would
this
say
and helpful through the process?
Yes.
Okay.
And-
Thank you. Yes, sir, Chief.
And I do have, and I'll be done after this, I promise.
Again,
But-
Chief, you're a politician too. Go ahead, sir.
But just to add on, we are a relatively small city, and we have received comments through our community as far as saying that a citation may have been issued in error or anything like that. We have informed the community that if they have any questions, now if it's a question of guilt or innocence, they come to court. But if there's any other questions that they have been told to contact me. I don't believe somebody should have to take off work and come to court to contest something that was actually done in error as far as the photo enforcement
Right.
program. So that is something that we have in place. We do work very well with Blue Line Solutions, and they are very receptive to our feedback.
Thank you, Chief. If we get somebody from Blue Line Solutions to come up and. Good morning.
Good morning.
If I could get you to identify yourself and tell us exactly what your role is with the vendor.
Absolutely. My name is Mark Fraser. I'm the National Director of Sales for Blue Line Solutions.
And Mr. Fraser, do you have a law enforcement background?
I do.
Could you briefly tell us about that?
Yes, absolutely. I was a deputy sheriff with the Salt Lake County Sheriff's Office many years ago, and then also a Chattanooga police officer in Blue Line Solutions, hometown of Chattanooga.
Okay. Were any of your assignments, did you do any traffic enforcement?
Absolutely. Yeah, it was a daily operation for me.
Okay. If you could, can you speak to the technology that is used by Blue Line?
Absolutely.
Would you tell us how this particular piece of equipment can tell me if someone's going 11 miles an hour over the speed limit through a school zone?
Yeah, this equipment that we use is identical in nature to the handheld LiDAR units that every officer is trained with, every post-certified officer is trained with.
What does LiDAR mean?
LiDAR is a laser device that measures speed to an accuracy of about 99.9999%.
And do you know how long LiDAR's been used to measure speed?
For a very long time, but it is the go-to standard for every law enforcement agency. In the country.
Is it not true that some handheld radar are based on the same technology?
Yeah, absolutely. That almost all modern handheld devices are LiDAR devices.
So I'm going to let you jump off here in just a second into the water, but to be clear, if the LiDAR that a state law enforcement officer will be using to measure traffic on the interstate, what we're using to measure traffic in school zones is that same technology, only it's stationary?
Exactly.
Okay. If you tell us a little bit about the systems, how they're set up, and then I'm sure my friends up here are going to have some questions.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll start with how we begin a program. We always start a program with a 5-day speed study, so we have a baseline understanding of what the problem, speeding problem in the area would be. We then work with the city to develop an engineered program for where they're experiencing the highest levels of problems. We work with city, state, and county permitting to install the units, and we do an incredibly in-depth public information and education campaign to ensure that the community is aware that the police department is taking this problem seriously and working to resolve it with technology. The technology itself is like what we discussed. It is LiDAR based. It is extraordinarily accurate. The devices track the speed of the vehicle. Each lane has its own LiDAR device, so that we know with certainty that the vehicle that is being tracked is the one that's being identified for citation. That information is sent via LTE cellular, encrypted cellular information to our Chattanooga offices, where a team of our processors review the image that was taken of the vehicle, the rear of the vehicle, and the license plate. They run that license plate through NLITS, which is a national database of registrations. They ensure that registration and the vehicle match, and then they develop a citation for that, which is then sent back to the police department, which is what the chief was discussing earlier.
Thank you, Mr. Frazier. Real quick, Senator Bearden has a question, but I want to ask you real quick, how do y'all get the information on the vehicle registration?
That's through NLITS. That's it's a national database of registration. It's a CGIS compliant national.
Is it a subscription or is it open source?
No, it is. We pay for the service for NLITS.
All right, thank you, Senator Bearden.
Couple questions. And I hate to ask you to speak for all companies out there, but all companies, are you familiar? Do they use LiDAR/laser for?
Not all companies. Yeah, there are radar devices. There are several different technologies that you could use. You can use a scanning radar or a 3D radar. LiDAR is the gold standard.
Now, on your tickets that it's issued, does it also show them how many feet they were from when they got the ticket? You're going 45 miles an hour. The speed was detected at 385 feet from the camera.
I don't know that is on the citation that the offender receives, but it is certainly in the metadata. So if they were to challenge the citation or contest the citation, that would all be made very clear and available to them at their court date.
Do we think that's something that we probably should put on there to make sure we know exactly when the speed was detected for the citizens that's getting the ticket?
If it is not currently on there, then it's something that could be added to it, absolutely.
And final question, every morning before I got on the road and every night when I got off, I calibrated my equipment to make sure it was working properly and upon the request of a violator. How often is your equipment tested for accuracy on the calibrations?
Every 35 minutes, it self-certifies, yes.
Self-certifies. Mm-hmm. Walk me through that.
Well, the devices are they're internet connected, obviously. So we have a monitoring department at our offices, a CNOC, or a Camera Network Operations Center, and through that the devices are constantly being monitored, and they run a self-check on themselves every 35 minutes to ensure their accuracy.
Kind of like you, it's been a few years since I did, so we had the old tuning forks and all that business on there trying to make sure everything's working properly.
Yeah.
So thank you for those answers.
With the citations, they are then sent out to the customer. And the customer has limited ability to dismiss?
Not really. There are options for them to give the reasons for dismissal, but they can dismiss at their own leisure.
So would it be right to say there's officer discretion?
100% officer discretion. These programs are, we truly just facilitate the program on behalf of the agency. The agency runs the program at their discretion. If they tell me that, hey, we are dismissing this citation, I don't challenge that at all. I don't say why are you dismissing?
Because wouldn't I be right to say, and certainly don't want to offend anybody, though I tend to do it on a regular basis. Chattanooga is not part of Georgia, therefore any post-certified officer in Chattanooga does not have jurisdiction in the state of Georgia. Would that be correct?
That is absolutely correct.
And the police chief of Decatur has quite a bit of authority, so if he chooses to use it himself or pass it down to someone in his chain of command, that if that individual officer, deputy, whatever, sees a citation that falls outside of his comfort zone, then he has the absolute authority to dismiss that citation. Would that be true?
That is his prerogative, sir.
Okay, and it is not the prerogative of Blue Line or any other vendor, correct?
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry, I had one more. Is it pretty much industry standard for a 35-65 split for a certain time of a contract?
Within a measure, yeah, absolutely. That seems to be a fairly standard breakdown.
I guess we'll stick with your company since you have more knowledge of your company. How long are the contracts for?
Anywhere from 3 to 5 years. But again, this is something that we will work with these agencies to ensure that they're comfortable with the.
What's the difference between a 3-year contract and a 5-year contract other than 2 years?
Nothing, quite
I
honestly.
knew he would hit me if I did not make that comment.
Yeah.
So he's going to tell me 2 years.
Yeah.
And no one disagreed when he said he can be hard
Well,
sometimes.
one thing is for certain, the revenue goes down year to
Introduce
year.
yourself, please, Steve.
My name's Steve Butler. I represent Blue Line Solutions here at the Capitol. But I also used to be Chief Staff Fulton County, work in the Department of Education, so I'm pretty sensible to some of the data and circumstances they're dealing with. But their revenue starts to go way down. With a 90% reduction in speeding comes a 90% reduction in revenue. So, one other point I'd like to make. The chief said earlier, you had mentioned that tax dollars might go to pay for these flashing lights. The revenue generated from the speeding violations would go to pay for his lights, not the regular tax digest.
Right, but with the falling revenue and these devices costing $65,000 each, are eventually, if we're out there to make every school zone safe, which I'm a little concerned, you get into some urban areas that have many more school districts or school locations, then it's going to look like Christmas time every time you come into a school zone. And I brought this out the other day. I think and listen, my concern is always going to be school zones, but at the same time, my concern is always going to be speeding. I don't care if you're up on the interstate. I'm the grandfather that gets in the right lane. If the speed limit's 70, I set my truck on 65 and turn on a podcast and slowly meander my way to the Capitol. While everybody's flying by me, and I'm very comfortable with that. But I think all of us sitting up here have seen the results of speeding and have seen the impact on the human body when speeding is involved, whether the individual's in a vehicle or outside of a vehicle. And human beings do not last long with speed. And so that was my concern over that. But at the same time, I live in Harris County, Georgia. I know where these cameras are, but even more so, I know where every school is. So if I'm coming into the rural part of the county where there are no cameras, I still know I have to slow down because there's a school coming up ahead. And so I just get a little concerned that we have to hold the hand of every citizen and use it as some kind of excuse to excuse them violating a law or an ordinance. While we are public servants as senators, our role, and I know Chairman Bearden's role has not changed, is to serve and to protect the community, whether we are in the law enforcement role or wherever we're in the role of a state senator. So, that's I appreciate the technology, and while I understand we want to put layers and layers and layers in there, at some point it's preposterous in my mind for citizens to continue to pay for things to only address those actors who choose not to follow the rules. So that's my concern. But one question, Blue Line owns the equipment from the day they put it in until the 5-year contract may be over and it's removed?
That's correct, sir.
And does Blue Line pay or full installation of all the equipment? Is that on Blue Line?
Absolutely.
And that is to the Department of Transportation, I would think? Is that who installs the equipment on the side of the road?
We install the equipment on the side.
With permits from the Georgia Department of Transportation?
Correct, depending on if it's a state route. If it's a state route, yes, through GDOT and local roads through the city.
Are this equipment, when it's put in, I'm assuming there's concrete in the ground that holds it stationary? And is there a tech that runs all the tests on this equipment from the time it's installed to ensure that it's installed correctly so that we're getting good LiDAR readings?
That is correct, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay. Chairman Beard?
Well, I'll follow back up on the 3 to 5 year contracts. 3-year contract, is that a higher revenue share? And probably don't like the term revenue share, but is it a higher revenue share than a 65-35 than a 5-year contract would be?
Yeah, we would work out so that we have essentially a return on our investment that is covered in the term of the contract, so that
So the 3-year contract could be a higher,
could potentially
Split.
be a higher. Yes, sir.
okay, thank you.
All right, hang around, if you don't mind, if we run into any other tech questions, we'd love to pick your brain, Mr. Frazier.
Absolutely, I'd love to.
Mr.
be
Chairman, if I could make one more point too about the school hours, because let's face it, there's two big conversations, the revenue and the school hours. There's a lot of good GDOT data that we'll send to the committee members to consider. The last set of data that we sent last year was up to 2023 on the activities in these school zones, and it's extremely accurate data, and whatever decision the committee might make, it'd be probably useful to review it.
And you'll provide that information?
Yes, sir.
To,
And
to members of the Senate Public Safety Committee full, and to Senator Burns.
Yes, sir.
Because this is Senator Burns' legislation that we're working on. And
Yes, sir.
so I want to make sure that he does not get surprised, or that he has the resources before we do.
Yes,
in
sir,
any way
absolutely.
we
I'll add
can.
you to that email string. Now, this data is from 21-23. I'm trying to get more accurate data.
And where was it? Who owns this data?
GDOT.
This is GDOT data.
Yes,
Okay.
on incidents in school zones, and it's very useful.
And Mr. Frazier, I'm going to ask you an off-the-cuff question, and I'll ask some of the other law enforcement officers too as they come up. You heard the Decatur chief talk about the time, the 1 hour, 1 hour. Very easy to understand why that is. I'm a little concerned that we don't have some overlap for delivery and exit of students in some case. Has there ever been consideration of this equipment, or do y'all have this equipment anywhere outside of a school zone?
Not in the state of Georgia.
Okay, but in the United States, I know there's, I want to say 100 and my numbers could be old, I think 180 something communities that use this type of technology in the United States that we've looked at. But are there some communities that you're aware of that use this as general speed enforcement within their municipality?
Absolutely, I would cite Colorado. Colorado has a statute that allows for it to be used on park-adjacent roads or residential roads where the law enforcement agency can justify the need for speed enforcement.
How often is the justification for those non-school zone type infrastructure being lack of personnel to enforce those laws? Do you
That
know?
I don't have specific information on, but it would certainly be a metric by which they would apply for the opportunity to use it.
All right, thank you, Mr. Frazier. Chairman Burns, you're on 8, correct? Or 5?
5.
Yes, sir.
A follow-up to the chairman's comment. Are you aware of the use of this technology in non-school speed zones across the U.S. that might relate to construction zones?
Absolutely, yes, sir. It is used in work zones in some states, Virginia being one.
Okay, thank you. So it is used beyond the school zone enforcement space, is that correct?
The technology certainly allows for it to be used in other areas.
Thank you.
And I think one of the states I looked at, Senator Burns, it was either New York or Washington State uses them in DOT type traffic, so they don't put the folks out in the road and hurt.
That's not authorized by law in Georgia, though.
Correct. Yeah. Mr. Frazier, one thing, have you had contracts start and contracts in, and the individuals not renew the contracts?
No, we've never had an agency end a contract with us.
If you do, who is responsible for removing the equipment?
We would be responsible for that.
Because who owns the equipment?
We own the equipment, sir.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Chairman Bearden just self-reported that he lied. He has one more question.
Sorry. Honest politician.
His words, not mine. That's an oxymoron.
At the end of the contract,
Yes, sir.
so it's a 5-year contract, it ends, they renew. Is the revenue share still the same, or does 100% go to the city and county at that point?
We would have to renegotiate the contract. There's a huge, obviously, to implement a program like this, there is a large back end that is in place, being our processing center, our mailing center, our printing center, our technology center. All of those are necessary in order for a program like this to function. right? Like the technology on the side of the road is not just, self-healing, self-running. It doesn't just do its thing. It requires a team of people. Should a municipality try to do this on their own, it would become so bloated that it would be cost prohibitive. So that's why having a vendor that's able to do it for a small fee is so beneficial to these agencies.
So your contract's negotiable.
Contract is negotiable, absolutely, yes.
Okay, thank you.
He says he's done now. Okay, if you gentlemen want to step back, thank you. Chief Weiss from Hamilton, Georgia. And full disclosure, Chief Weiss is from Harris County. He polices in Harris County, and his city is about, depending on how fast I'm driving, doing the speed limit, he's about 10 minutes from my house in the municipality. And he is runs the speed camera system in the school system that I graduated from. So, Chief, I'd love for you to tell us a little bit about your program, how long you've been doing it, and I'm very curious into your dismissal rate. Okay. Mic's on.
Well, good morning. My name is Eric Weiss. I'm the chief of the Hamilton, Georgia Police Department. I just want to thank each and every one of you for allowing me the opportunity to be able to come here and speak with y'all today and explain our program and the ability to be able to answer any questions y'all might have. I've been chief of police in Hamilton for about 4 years, going on 4 years. In March and April 21, I was appointed police chief. I'm a little unique in this program or this process because I was not part of the application, installation, or initial few months in the system. It was implemented in January 21 here, and just for context, we have 4 schools in Hamilton, 3 of which have cameras. So 3 zones, 6 cameras total. It was implemented in January, and I got here in April 21, and it was poorly implemented. Not necessarily by the company or the program, but there was no guidelines, there was no policy or procedures. So I saw and had to handle the implications of not having good policies and good procedures for this program. So what happened? A lot of citizen complaints. We were also one of the first entities around our area to implement these cameras. So I had to go back and learn everything about these cameras, and so I was able to answer these citizens' concerns and complaints. So in 2021, for the calendar year, just to give you all some context for numbers, we had over 4,000 violations. 4,000 violations. Those have since cut in half. We are going to average about 1,500 violations per year. Roughly, if you break it down to a per day violation for 6 cameras, it is about 1 violation for 1 camera per day through a calendar year. So we're seeing a massive decrease in that. And Senator, you wanted to know specific questions about dismissal rates?
What I'd like to know is if a citizen, and I'll ask you this since we've been dragging Blue Line around, who's your vendor?
Red Speed.
Red Speed.
Correct.
Okay, how do you receive the citation from Red Speed? Is it the same way Blue Line receives them?
I'm unfamiliar with Blue Line.
Where you go to a portal?
It'll be a portal.
Okay, and who looks at the citations within your agency? Is it you or is it an officer?
For three years, it was solely me. I have since, me and the sergeant on the force, we were the only ones that have access to approve or dismiss any violations.
Okay, and explain to us the approval and dismissal process with the red line system.
Okay, so it's Red Speed. It is a
Red
radar.
Speed.
It is a radar system. A alleged violation will come in the portal. There's a video attached as well. The first thing we do is watch the video and give our visual estimate to see if this was, if this is could be a valid speeding violation. We also view if there's multiple cars in the frame. It is radar. Okay, it is not a perfect technology. For example, if there is a car tailgating a vehicle and there's 2 cars in the frame, and I cannot defiantly say, "Yep, I'm sure that vehicle was speeding, that violation will be dismissed on the error to the side of caution. Even though these are preponderance of the evidence civil cases, we try to view it as beyond a reasonable doubt criminal cases, even though the standard of proof is different. We also check the tag and see if the vehicle matches. The registered owner is automatically, it's auto-populated, and we make sure everything from the times of the lights, the times the violation was issued, and the speed are as accurate we can tell on the portal.
Chief, do you have any citations you received that are done that were issued outside of the posted time?
No, sir.
Okay.
No, sir.
Chairman Burns.
Could you, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Could you, what are your times of operations in Hamilton? What times do you operate the speed zone cameras?
There's three different times, 3 different schools, but just for
So each school has its own designated time, is that correct?
correct, yes, sir.
Thank you.
And just for context, if a school starts, arrival time is at 8 a.m.
Okay,
Our cameras and lights start flashing at 7:30, run to 8:30. It's an hour window. When I first got here, it was if school started at 8 o'clock, for the context of this example, the lights would come on per the law at 7 a.m. and run to 8.
8 a.m., 8.
8 a.m. We only run during arrival time and dismissal time,
Only during arrival and dismissal, and only 30 minutes prior,
and 30 minutes in.
after. Okay.
Chief, real quick, is there someone here from Red Speed that could testify? If you'd come up and have a seat next to the chief, just so we can stay on time.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman.
Good morning,
Sean
sir.
McDonald on behalf of Red Speed.
Thank you. Go ahead, Chief.
Senator, do you have another question?
I understood your answer is, right now, per school, per individual school zone, you're 30 minutes prior to the start of the day, and then through 30 minutes after the end of the day. Is that correct?
Let me clarify, Senator. So we only run during arrival time. We do not run throughout the day. We cut it off, no warning lights, no reduced speed, no enforcement of the cameras, and we pick up at dismissal time.
At dismissal time.
Yes,
Thank you.
But I want to be clear, you said no reduced speed, but Chief, is it not true that there is reduced speed required by Georgia law in a school zone when school's in session?
Correct.
Or which, right.
Correct.
Right. Okay. Just want to be clear.
Yes, sir.
So your cameras are on for an hour in the morning
Correct.
and an hour in the afternoon?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Chairman Beard.
Going to you on this one, Chuck. Chief said that they use radar on Red Speed's equipment.
Yes, sir.
Is all of Red Speed's equipment radar-based, or is it also LiDAR-based, depending on the situation?
Sir, I'm not sure I'm able to answer that question. I can get the information and get it back to you.
To be clear, he represents Red Speed. He does not work for Red Speed. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, okay.
I'm not familiar with the technology.
And Senator, to my knowledge, Red Speed does operate radar as well as they are implementing some LiDARs in newer units as well.
Is that a jurisdiction or city's recommendation of which one they want to use?
Yeah, I believe so. Yes, sir.
Okay, and Chief, would you know how is the radar equipment calibrated the same way through technology on a continuous basis?
So once every year, every 12 months, the actual unit is calibrated, okay, per state law. Every day, it conducts an internal accuracy check internally. And just for some clarification on the development of our radar units, out of your prior law enforcement, the old tuning fork test, Stalker, and that was the gold standard in Georgia in every radar unit for years. Stalker just put out an updated memo or suggestion that is beginning, I believe, to be adopted by the troopers and the Georgia Department of Public Safety, that the technology is so good on the internal radars that the tuning fork test is no longer required. It constantly updates itself and constantly does internal checks. That does not mean it does not have to be calibrated one time a year.
Okay.
So,
I appreciate that very
Yes, sir.
much.
Chief, you may have mentioned it. Out of all the citations that come in, what percentage do you normally dismiss?
It's a hard number to put down. We have about a 90% approval rate, but there's context to that. There are some times if school is canceled or school is delayed at a very short notice, I will not have the opportunity to contact Red Speed and go, do not enforce them for this day, a water main break, something like that. So I will actually have to go, knowing school was not in, and we're not going to enforce that, and manually dismiss each one. So that number can be skewed slightly, but about one in 9 is it's a hard arbitrary number to put something on like that.
Chairman Burns?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to piggyback on something that Chairman Bearden asked the last witness. Can you speak to the contract that the city has with Red Speed as far as the revenue stream?
Correct. It's a 65-35 split.
So it's the same as what we experienced in Decatur, is that correct?
Correct, yes, sir.
And is it also true that Red Speed does the installation based upon GDOT's review and approval?
Correct.
And they own the camera and they own the equipment, and you are providing, they're providing you a service, is that correct?
Correct, yes,
Thank
sir.
you.
Okay, and due process is through which court?
Be Hamilton Municipal Court.
Okay, and
Traffic court.
are citizens who receive these citations, is it clearly articulated to them what they can do if they choose to challenge this citation?
It is.
Do you have individuals that have challenged these citations?
Not in a while. We do something different in Hamilton. I made that discretion as the chief. The state law says you can submit an affidavit, sworn affidavit in open court, and or testify in open court that you were not the driver of the vehicle. The subsection of it, or the B section, also says another parameter is if you can provide a police report that your vehicle was stolen. Fortunately, that hasn't happened here in Hamilton. What I do, it is not published on the citation. It's almost word-of-mouth marketing, so to speak. If a citizen calls me and says, hey, I need to schedule a court date, I advise them of the process. If they submit to our court clerk or me directly a notarized affidavit saying they were not the registered owner, has to do it, was not the operator of the vehicle, I will, as the CEO of the organization, dismiss that and notate on the dismissal, notarized affidavit submitted on this date, and keep those affidavits on file.
Okay,
So we do things a little bit different.
thank you.
Mr. Chairman, if I may address the hours.
Yes.
Briefly. So on behalf, Chuck McMullen on behalf of Red Speed, we have over 70 contracts throughout the state. And while state law allows an hour before, during, enforcement during, and after, each of those are local decisions decided by the local governing authority through an ordinance. And so what we have found is typically the cities enact those hours based on the need of the community and based on the speed studies. So it's very data driven. And so that gives the local jurisdictions the flexibility. And if over time they've seen that they want to modify those hours, we've seen that also.
Who conducts the speed studies?
Red Speed does on behalf of the jurisdiction prior to, before we can get the GDOT permit.
Are those speed studies available?
We have them in our position, yes, sir.
Yeah, could you provide us a
Some
copy
examples?
of the
Yes, sir.
most recent speed study, Red Speed?
Well, so what we do it for each jurisdiction prior to.
I understand that.
Yes, sir.
Would I be correct to say that did y'all enter into a contract with Muskogee County Schools?
Yes, sir, I believe so.
Okay. Has a speed study been done in Columbus?
I believe so.
Okay. If that speed study has been done, could you get us a copy of that speed study?
Yes, sir.
And when I say speed study, this is done through traditional technology and picking up vehicles and speed and things of that nature?
Yes, sir, and we can track those throughout the day, and what we see is in a large number of these speed studies, we'll actually see speeding remains the same throughout the day. And it's also important to note that schools, children's habits have changed, right? The days of just dropping a child off in the morning and then leaving at 3 o'clock upon dismissal has really changed. We've also seen through dual enrollment, students are leaving the school and going to attend their college classes. Kids get picked up for dentists, doctors. My kids and my oldest daughter is a senior in high school. She leaves for lunch on her free periods. And so the idea that kids just leave, get there in the morning and leave, that's just not the way it happens anymore. And we've seen that through the speed studies, speeding occurs all throughout the day. So if that local jurisdiction chooses to enforce during the day, that's completely up to them.
Thank you. Chief Weiss, real quick, for someone to get a citation driving past one of your schools, how fast do they have to be going?
11 miles an hour or more are the posted speed limit.
So they have to be, so school zone speed limit in the morning is 25?
One zone's 25, one's 35.
Okay.
Or 2 or 35.
So somebody going through a 25 mile an hour school zone would have to be doing 36 miles an hour to get a
Correct.
citation?
Correct.
In your professional opinion, 10 miles an hour above the speed limit in a school zone, is that fast?
Yes, sir. Correct.
Okay, thank you. Chairman Burns?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I want to fall back up. You indicated that some jurisdictions choose to expand those hours. Hamilton does it for a certain period, Decatur. Could you share with the committee maybe the examples of the extremes? In other words, when is the earliest start and when is the latest end? So what is the largest window you experience?
So under state law, it's an hour before, during, and an hour after. Now, each of those times differ based on the school and the school system. So, for instance, you may have, the Atlanta Public School System, you've got the elementary school will start at one time, middle school and high school all start and end different times. So under the structure of the law, the earliest would be an hour before the earliest start time and an hour after the latest start time,
So it could be 7 a.m. to 6 p.m.
potentially based on those hours.
So it could be throughout the entire day. Is that correct?
Potentially.
What percentage, if I could, Mr. Chairman, what percentage of systems have you seen that utilize that extended day enforcement?
I don't have a specific percentage number. We could try to calculate
Could you get that for us? So the question is, how many choose to take the Hamilton model or the Decatur model versus a more expanded enforcement period?
I think we could come up with that number.
Do we have any, one more thing, I apologize, Mr. Chairman. Do we have any enforcement outside of those early starts and late finishes? Any enforcement beyond 7 a.m. to 6 p.m.?
Yes, sir. There is a provision of current law that would allow jurisdictions to operate for after care or for after school care. Like, for instance, if there's let's say the school ends at 3, but there's a school program that goes till 5. And so in one of the versions of a guardrail compromise bill, that cross-reference has been stricken in theory, technically, if a school's running an SAT program on a Saturday, in theory, under the current law, there's a provision of law that would allow the enforcement cameras to run because their kids are in school. Now, whether programs choose to do that or not, I think very few have done it, but I think when you have heard anecdotal stories of people getting a ticket outside traditional school hours, that's the provision of law that allows that.
And to that point, on Saturdays, so their SAT testing, are the flashing lights on during that time? And again, Chief, I think I know the answer to this question. Is the 25 or 35 mile an hour speed limit enforced on a Saturday? For what I'm saying is beyond the camera. If I'm the chief of a law enforcement agency, it's a Saturday, and the schools call you and say, Chief, we're going to be testing for SATs on Saturday. Would you put a patrol car there, activate the flashing lights, and write citations for anybody going 36 and a 25?
We wouldn't do that in Hamilton, but I
Right.
see that would be not very plausible.
Right. That was my concern, and I'm not sure that the speed limit would be 25 or 35 on a Saturday.
I would
Traditionally,
argue it
where it would be Monday through Friday, and on the Monday through Friday, the hour before, the hour after, when the speed limit is, and we'll say 35. Okay, then the speed limit goes up to whatever the speed limit is. Is that still 11 miles over?
Yes, sir.
So if the speed limit goes from 35 to 55, for somebody to get a citation, they would have to be doing 66 miles an hour
Yes, sir.
through that school zone outside of the early morning and afternoon times, correct?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, that's correct.
Okay. And so their citation would read that they were doing 66 and a 55.
Yes, sir, and children are present in school.
And children are present, right. Okay, thank you. Chairman Bearden, and then we're going to
Okay. You brought up a point I want to check on real quick. So the kids are at school. Could a jurisdiction say we have a baseball game starting at 7 o'clock or a football game on Friday night kicking off at 8? Could the jurisdiction say we have kids in the schools, on the school property, we're gonna run the cameras?
In theory, yes. We've not seen that, and traditionally for instance, for a big football game, at least a lot of the ones I've been to, there's usually a law enforcement presence.
Okay.
All right, thank you, Chief. Thank you, Charles. Y'all, sit back. Let's
Yes, sir.
see.
Thank you.
Chief Freeman. How you doing, sir? Sir?
Good morning.
Good morning. Chief Freeman, if you could tell us about your program.
Absolutely.
And I think you've heard all the questions, so we're gonna let you.
I have, but
Yeah.
I definitely want to tell you a little bit about Conyers. First of all, I'm Scott Freeman. I'm the Chief of Police for the City of Conyers, which is located in Rockdale County. Approximately 19,500 people live inside the City of Conyers, and I have the honor to protect and serve. We have a daytime policing population that runs about 80 to 100,000 people because we have such a large number of businesses and a lot of industry. So we have a lot of people that actually commute to inside the City of Conyers. So our program for school safety actually started in 2019. We are a Red Speed agency. We signed our contract with Red Speed. They did our Red Speed study back in 2019. And we really went down the path of looking at technology, and it really is about how do we police smarter using technology to make the community safe. We had a large number of traffic issues. To kind of give you an example, in 2020, we had 6 fatalities on our highways and roadways inside the city. In 2021, we had 4. 2022, we had 4. So, the numbers are really dire. Anytime you lose anybody on the streets, that really raises the attention of law enforcement, or at least it should. So allocating police officers to work speed detection inside a school zone, while extremely important, may not necessarily be the most wise use of resources when you actually have people dying out on the other areas of your community. Also, in the same time period, we had multiple pedestrian strikes. Fortunately, none of them were killed, but we also had other people on bicycles throughout the community that were also being struck by vehicles as well. So Conyers is a unique community when we talk about what we have inside the city limits. We have 4 schools. One of our schools is a career academy. It's located in a business district, so we don't have a school zone set up. There is no vehicular traffic that runs through that area, so it's kind of isolated. One of the areas, and this is where we are very unique, I have 3 schools that are located right there in the same geographic area. C.J. Hicks Elementary, Rockdale County High School, and I have my county's magnet school right there in one area. They're off of 2 streets, Roland Road and Pine Log Road. I cannot run speed enforcement with a camera on Roland, and I can't run speed detection on Roland because of the grade. It's 8%, so I'm limited there. I can on Pine Log Road. It's Pine Log Road from start to end is 1.15 miles. So when we start looking at some of the restrictions that I've seen in the legislation about half a mile, quarter mile for signage, I think that does need to be taken into consideration. Some agencies may be very limited with that. So in my 3 schools, I have almost 3,500 students that attend there, almost 4,000 people, including staff and support, and all those students are isolated into those 3 different schools. When we implemented Red Speed, we brought our system online in 2020. And our speed study indicated, and similar to what Decatur had as far as their numbers, they were just astronomical. For 1 camera, 1 lane of travel for a 2-hour period, we had 380 cars that were exceeding the posted speed limit for the school, which was 25 miles per hour. That means that 380 of those cars were doing 36 miles per hour plus in entering into the school zone. that was a clear indicator to us that we had a significant need to address that specific issue. So our school zone is just one school zone. We deployed 2 cameras there, one on both sides of Pine Log Road, so we actually operate 2 cameras. We actually...
Chief, if I could stop you real quick question. You were talking about grade just a few minutes ago.
Yes, sir.
Are you talking about traditional radar where you couldn't run grade?
That is correct.
Does this equipment, when it's installed, does it take in grade, or do you still have the restriction there?
I still have the restriction. That is correct.
Very good.
Yes,
okay,
sir.
thank you.
And so when we did our installation of Red Speed, we did really an overhaul of our entire school safety zones. We replaced all of our warning beacons with LED warning beacons that are connected, and we can control them from the police headquarters. I have 2 lieutenants that are trained. I have several officers that are trained, so we can modify those based on school schedules. When we rolled this out, we did a public safety campaign where we did not only the social media broadcasting, we did door tag hangers, because we have a lot of townhomes, we have a lot of apartment complexes, we have a lot of residential areas in there. We used our police volunteers. We did door hangers throughout every single area that for street that adjoins all of the schools. So as a matter of fact, this is one of the things that we put up on every single door that was adjacent to all of the schools. And we did that in the spirit of transparency, because every single one of those residents needed to know that they were going to be they're living in a school zone area that was going to have speed detection being operated by a camera. So we did all of those things back in 2019 and 2020. And since we have been online for quite some time, we have seen a significant, and when I say significant, even I have been amazed at the total reduction in speed. We have seen a 96% reduction on average of the amount of violators that have been coming in for January.
Chief, you said 96?
Yes, sir, that is correct. So when we did our speed study, on one day for 2 hours, we had 380 violators for just one camera for a 2-hour time span. For the entire month of January for 2025, this was the latest number, for 2 cameras for 4 hours, we only had 497 violators with a dismissal rate of 5 total tickets. That's just averaging 24 per day, and that's 12 per camera.
And what were the dismissals based on, Chief?
I do not know the answer to that, so that's left up to the individual who's actually reviewing that. But it could be that it could be a tag that may not necessarily match. It could be an address that is coming back to a company that is like a lease or something along those lines.
Chief, real quick, how long have you been on the job?
So I'm going to my 35th year in law enforcement.
Okay, and you've ran traffic before?
I used to be a traffic officer, yes.
Okay. Chief, is it humanly possible for a motor unit or an officer in a vehicle with a radar to write that many citations in a day?
Absolutely not. Not even on a good day.
Right. I mean, and you would have the most congested school district around, because everything would be blue lights and vehicles pulled over. Is that not correct?
That is correct, yes, sir.
Chief, do you see this as an efficient tool for safety?
I not only see it as an efficient tool for safety, I see it as an absolute necessity for safety. We have a lot of students and parents and staff members that actually walk to school because we have so many residential areas, townhomes, apartments, right there in that one specific area. I, being for one, who actually live in the area that is affected, that has Red Speed deployed, I see it all the time. We have so many kids walking to school, and I don't believe that if we had this technology up and had it established for so long, that we would have the motorists having slowed down for and actually obeying the speed limit with the numbers that we're actually seeing.
Okay, Chairman Burns.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for your work in Conyers. You were talking about your warning signage and the LED lights, and I understand and receptive to the concerns about distance. What distance prior to the camera enforcement would the motorists know that they're in that school zone? What's your distance warning sign?
So it depends on because we are dealing with a little bit of a distance issue. And I'll give you an example. So coming from Main Street, we're at the intersection of Pine Log Road. If you turn off of Main Street and you come down Pine Log Road, it is approximately 0.10 miles until you get to the first sign that says you're entering into a speed zone, and that sign there says speed zone, camera enforced. So speed detection is camera enforced.
Does it have the flashing lights?
That particular sign does not.
Okay.
The next sign that you run into, which is 0.05 miles after that sign, is actually where we have a warning beacon.
Okay.
So the warning beacon, it's 2 yellow flashing lights. It does activate when the school zone is in effect, which is when the red speed cameras do activate. And it does have signage on it that indicates that speed enforcement is in effect at the time the beacons are being alerted, when it is in effect. So
Chief,
after
yeah.
warning beacon, 0.10 miles after that is when the first red speed camera actually hits. That's when you actually pass by the actual device that registers your speed, and then once you pass it, then it will.
Hang on.
So.
I have no work.
Okay, so 5,280 feet in a mile.
Right.
So a tenth of a mile, roughly 500 feet is the last. No, less than that. 250 feet.
I believe we would be well within. We would exceed the 500 feet standard on that. So I think we were well covered in that. I worked with Red Speed personally because I've been with this system since we started it. Red Speed was phenomenal in making sure that we did this correctly, to make sure that we had all of the signage. Our street department, we replaced all of the signs to make sure that there were high visibility with the yellow reflection, to make sure that all of the signs were upgraded and updated so that they were highly visible. So we're definitely meeting all of the signage requirements as far as distance is concerned.
Okay. Thanks, Chairman. Chief, have you noticed a decline in revenue since you started the Red Speed program?
I have to be very candid. I don't keep track of the revenue when it comes in.
Have you noticed a decline in citations?
I think that in looking, I do get a report monthly on the number of citations. The citation count does fluctuate, so for instance, in January we had 497, but also we had snow days as well. Right. December was 684, and then November, that was December of 2024, and then November of last year was 568.
But if you back out the snow days and those other unique opportunities and average, I
think the numbers are stable.
Okay.
And I would attribute that to we do have a lot of businesses, a lot of shopping. I think that people coming in do seem to forget at times, maybe distractions, other violations of law, hands-free violations. They may seem to forget that they're actually entering into a school zone. I have known people personally that it's like, yeah, I got it. I was on my phone, wasn't even paying attention. I'm like, well, do you want me to write you a ticket for that? You should have been on the phone to begin with.
Chief, when you ran traffic, where did you run traffic?
I ran traffic inside the city, and I ran it all over because I was assigned a traffic officer, including the school zones.
Okay, and there's different speed limits within Conyers, right?
Yes, sir, that is correct.
And I'm talking about outside of school zones. And you find out about those different speeds when you're driving down the road at a certain speed, and you look up and you see a sign up ahead that either says reduce speed ahead or has a different speed limit, right?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
Typically, are there flashing lights and signs giving you your speed and everything when you see those driving outside of school zones?
No, sir.
So would you say, and this is me being a facetious law enforcement officer, would you say that we depend on citizens to look through the windshield of their vehicle, wear their seatbelts, stay off their phone, and observe everything around them and watch the speed limit signs?
We do depend on them to do what they need to do to make the roadways safe.
Right, and I understand with the children, we're dealing with a much more fragile population.
Absolutely.
And so that's extremely important to do that. My last question, and then we're going to bring up one last individual who represents a vendor. Due process. Where are the cases heard in Conyers if an individual wants to challenge one of these citations?
In our municipal court.
Okay, and in the municipal court, you have someone, and I heard you say you had some specially trained individuals within your agency that would come in there and testify to the technology and the calibration of the equipment, things of that nature?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay. Thank you, Chief. Finally, we're going to, because of time, I want to bring up Matthew Ralston, who's a representative for one of the companies that we have not heard from yet today. Good morning, Mr. Ralston.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. Matt Ralston with Troutman Strategies, representing Vera Mobility. A little bit about Vera Mobility first. We're formerly known as American Traffic Solutions. We've been in the automated enforcement space since 1987, serving more than 300 communities and 10,000 cameras globally. That's 26 states and also an international presence as well. Vera Mobility creates safer cities by building, installing, maintaining, and managing leading technology solutions that positively impact driver behavior and enhance road safety. We tailor our solutions to the needs of local communities within the authorized legislative framework to meet our customers at the highest point of need. And we believe framework that centers around programs on changing behavior, operating with transparency and consistency across the state, and driving safety outcomes. And for context of what we do here in Georgia, we operate outside of just the speed enforcement for school zones. We do red light cameras, which has been part of the statute since 2001. We also work with school bus cameras in addition to our school zone speed operation.
Thank you. And I referenced something early on. Does the company you represent, do y'all have the contract for Macon Bib?
We do not.
Okay. Where locally are y'all located?
City of Atlanta, I believe we have Union City, and Senator Bearden, I think we have Carrollton over in your area.
And listening to the other vendors talk about it, do y'all conduct speed tests prior to installing your equipment?
Yes, sir.
Do y'all go through the Department of Transportation to install your equipment?
Yes, sir.
Do y'all own your equipment?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Do y'all do a 35/65 as we've heard before, or is it based on contract to contract?
Yeah, so excellent question. It is based contract to contract. The way the market is for the school zone speed cameras is the revenue sharing, so to speak, is kind of driving the market, so to speak. But since we operate, and additionally in the red light camera space as well, the law there since 2001 has been that vendors and manufacturers are not allowed to collect a percentage of every violation that goes out the door. So kind of from our perspective, when we start talking about reforms and other things that could make these programs better, we think that mirroring this law closer to the red light camera law in that aspect would be beneficial in driving school safety.
Your red light camera contracts, who are those contracts between? Are they between your company and the municipality?
Yes, sir.
Well, wouldn't that be couldn't you do that now? Isn't that part of the contract where you could talk revenue split? You could talk, I used to carry a taser, and I could go buy tasers for $100. It was the cloud storage and accessories and maintenance that were the high end. Same thing with many pieces of equipment in law enforcement. They would practically give us the equipment as long as we use their technology and as long as we use their cloud storage, whether it was in-vehicle cameras and stuff like that. But we would negotiate every contract based on our particular needs in that case. So with these particular pieces of equipment, you could basically negotiate the same contract that you have on red light cameras, right?
Yeah, you could negotiate that negotiate that contract, and the services that we provide, and I believe all the other vendors provide too, kind of has been demonstrated as the review process, subscription type services, so to speak, and to your point, yes, you can do that, but one of the things that we think has been successful with the red light program is that there's no incentive for the vendors to be pushing out bad tickets to collect on a compensation per violation piece.
And, and some of my law enforcement friends in the room may debate me on this, and I appreciate that fact. I think we've all been to T-bone collisions where somebody has neglected to stop at a red light and this. But I think if we put red light violations up next to speed violations, I think we found a disproportionate impact coming from the speed side. So I do appreciate that, but I appreciate the uniqueness of the two separate ones. And one person I'd like to invite up, and he hates it when I throw him under the proverbial bus, but I'm going to do it, is DJ with Georgia Municipal Association, just for a quick few questions, if you don't mind, DJ. I'll try not to get you in trouble with your attorney. If you'd stay there. DJ, identify yourself real quick, if you will.
I'm DJ Waller with Georgia Municipal Association. We represent all 537 cities. Thank you for allowing me to speak. Thank you for your comment earlier.
And DJ, tell what's your primary responsibility at GMA? What's your focus?
So we have policy areas, and my particular policy areas are public safety and municipal government.
And DJ, I know y'all only say it 465,000 times during every legislative session, but how many cities do y'all represent?
537.
Okay. And my questions to you, listening to Mr. Ralston speak and the others, where's GMA on? We always hear about local control. Do y'all have a position on local control when it comes to traffic enforcement, speed enforcement, red light enforcement, and other issues around those particular subjects?
Absolutely. Again, thank you for allowing me to speak. We think that, more specifically, the speed camera, what we're discussing today, like you hit it, nail on the head, it's a force multiplier. We've heard people make the comments that you can just stick a cop car there. It's simply not that easy. We love this as a tool. We think this is a very good tool for our local law enforcement to have. We don't want it taken away. I think that's where the local control piece comes into. That's why I got a bald head now, because you made a comment earlier about lose hair every time. But we really think this is a great asset for police officers to use in cities.
Thank you. And we're about to wind down. I've got to go testify over in ethics here in a few minutes, where they used to allow myself and Senator Burns to reside. But once we got all the election stuff cleared up, they realized that they didn't need us anymore. I just want to. I don't think you're going to find anybody, and probably the next closest person to it is Chairman Bearden. But I have absolutely no stomach for revenue-based policing, and I don't think any good cop out there does either. We don't do our job to make money. We do our job to keep people safe. Where we do run into it occasionally is, I think, and no offense to mayors and city council members and county commissioners or anybody else, I think they do see law enforcement and public safety at time, but law enforcement primarily, because you don't have it with EMS, you don't have it with the fire service. But they do count revenue when it comes budget time. I wish there was a way where they had to wait 3 years before they could go back 3 years and count revenue, but they don't. I think all good agencies go out there and do it for the right reason. I mean, I've seen the professionalism here today, whether we're talking Hamilton, Conyers, anywhere in between there, Decatur. I think we see the professional attitudes and character of the men that came in here and testified today. And I guarantee you, if I ask either one of them, they wouldn't care how much money they made as long as they saved lives and kept people safe. And I hope and I believe that is the mission of the 500 plus cities that you guys represent, that y'all are not looking for equipment to bring in there to boost the revenue for the municipalities. That in fact y'all are doing this to keep people safe, which is the reason I ask about the Colorado model, where they actually use this equipment outside of school zones in some areas of the rural areas and others where if nobody knows this, that after 2020 we have had a drastic reduction in law enforcement. Every agency that comes before us now has open slots that they cannot fill. We even heard one agency can't fill SRO slots because they have to put people where people need to be. And I will never endorse putting empty police cars anywhere. That's being dishonest and disingenuous to the citizens that pay the taxes on that vehicle you've got sitting out there in the middle of nowhere trying to get a false message out. So I appreciate GMA's stance on this. I think all of us agree that this is a valuable tool. I think it needs to be used properly. There's a portion of this bill, and Chairman Burns knows how much I respect him. There's a portion of this bill that says the revenue would go into Peace Officers Annuity Benefit Fund. Well, I happen to draw a check from that fund every month. That type of revenue doesn't impact the fund. It just really doesn't. It's because it fluctuates. It's not a steady stream and this kind of stuff. And somebody brought it up to me earlier during the discussions on this. Nobody on this side of the Capitol did. And I see it as a type of pandering. And nobody gets into law enforcement for the salary, I can promise you that. But the only thing that insults us is when people insult our intelligence. And so I think this is an important piece of equipment, a force multiplier, like you've said and others have said. And I think it's something that we're going to really have to drill down on and figure out the best way we're doing it, along with partners like GMA and ACCG and Chairman Bearden's got.
I know you have committee meeting, so I'll be quick.
Yep.
Your company radar or LiDAR based or both?
I believe LiDAR.
Okay, that's all I got.
If you allow me to make one final comment, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, absolutely, DJ.
Like I said, I appreciate what y'all are doing here. I think it's two sides to it. You got critics that say it's revenue, and you got proponents of it saying, hey, this keeps our kids safe. I think we appreciate y'all trying to add the guardrails. I think that's something that's needed to be done. And if you add the guardrails, you add the flashing lights, if the revenue plummets, okay. If it doesn't, then we have a problem when people are speeding. I think that's the best approach that we should take, and we fully support that at GMA.
Thank you, Chairman Burns.
Just as a final comment, first of all, I appreciate the subcommittee. I appreciate the chairman and Senator Bearden's input. Be clear, I support the use of this tool. I believe that it is a valuable way for us to protect children. So my objective is consistency, knowing the times of operations, understanding the warning signage process, and due process. If we can get there, I'm more than willing to make adjustments that are necessary. So I appreciate the input today from really all of those who shared their expertise. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Yes, sir. I didn't have you on the list, but if you want to say something, absolutely. If you'll come up, yep. I know you're a former bureaucrat, so
I am.
we'll.
But Mr. Chairman and members of the committee, more importantly, I'm also an attorney, so you got to love me.
Well, bureaucrat and an attorney, that's one more strike and you're out.
I am. I just wanted to bring to the committee's attention first is the.
Tell us who you represent.
Okay. I am a consultant to the industry and specifically Blue Line, and I was Highway Safety Director for 8 years under Governor Perdue. And I've remained extremely active in the highway safety community with a lot of concepts from MAD Georgia to Vision Zero to safe systems, developing national policy on these things. But what I want to point out is the chart that's been provided to you that identifies all of Blue Line cities and the reduction in speeds that have occurred after these systems have been put in. And you've heard before, irrespective of the vendor, substantial reductions that we don't see elsewhere in law enforcement when it comes to traffic safety. And not taking up the time now, but there are some technicalities in the bill that I think it can help you with in terms of making it effective to try to achieve your objective. For example, you heard earlier about the signage where it needs to be. My experience is that define the signs that are needed, but let people that are engineers at GDOT exactly say where they should go.
Well, and I agree with you 100%, and I would encourage you to get on Chairman Burns's calendar and with his admin, who I believe is still Tarika. Yeah. None of us control our schedule.
Okay.
This young man right here controls mine. If you would get with her and get on schedule, I'm sure Chairman Burns would love to talk about the technicalities of it.
Yeah, I will.
I think everything he's done in this piece of legislation has been for the purpose of doing the right thing. And,
Agreed.
And from the very first time he testified, he made that very clear that he was not biased against the technology. He just wanted to make sure the technology was being used properly. And that the most important part, I want to be perfectly clear with this, is the due process portion. Citizens should know what their due process is. And the Chief Weiss pointed it out, preponderance of evidence in a civil case dealing with the differences within a criminal case. And so citizens need to be aware of that. They need to be made aware that, you know, the owner of the vehicle is responsible if they want to do an affidavit and this other stuff, whatever it may be that's included in Chairman Burns's legislation, then we can look at that, debate that, and figure out if that's the best thing. But I think what we've done is, I think what we've discovered today is that we're in a valley full of kudzu, and we still got to figure our way out. This is going to be a long process. Legislative sessions are 2 years. If this requires us putting together a study committee with Chairman Burns and others to sit down and figure this out with everybody sitting around the table, then that may be the recommendation we'll make to do that. But everybody involved, which the senators understand it, is our goal is to make sure this is a fair and just system that we're using to save lives. But those ticketed do not lose their rights just because they were speeding through a school zone.
Totally agree.
Yeah. Thank you. I appreciate it. And this meeting is adjourned.